Good evening and welcome to Bronx Talk. With Election Day 2025 coming up in a few weeks, the Campaign Finance Board and the CUNY Institute for State and Local Governance have formed a fellowship designed to increase voter participation in the Bronx, which has been noticeably low. This unique partnership between two politically independent organizations is about as grassroots as it gets. They've engaged some of the Bronx's most impactful nonprofits to actively work to increase Bronx voter participation. It's a fascinating project with very important upsides, plural. Please join me in welcoming a policy analyst for the New York City Campaign Finance Board. It is Demiana Rizkalla. Nice to have you with us, Ms. Rizkalla.
Thank you for having me.
And the program director of the CUNY Institute for State and Local Governance. It is Mr. Patrick Hart. Nice to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thank you so much, Gary.
Ms. Rizkalla, let's just talk then about this project. Why is this project so important, and you know, why is Gary excited about it? Because this really answers a lot of important questions in the Bronx.
In the Campaign Finance Board, as a nonpartisan agency, our mission really is to engage and educate voters all around the city and make sure that voting is accessible. This program itself is our investment directly in communities to make sure that voter education and engagement is going directly into the community, led by the community and for the community.
And what inspired it? And in a moment we'll put up some of the numbers that show voter participation as lagging in the Bronx. But what made you say, hey, wait a minute, let's work with them, let's put something significant together? And it was launched, folks, by the way, in September, so it's very current. Go ahead.
In 2023, the Campaign Finance Board produced a voter analysis report, and one of the recommendations was to create a program like this, like I said, so that we could invest directly in the community. CUNY ISLG is an incredible partner that has supported government agencies and community-based organizations all around the cities in this kind of work.
So it really made a lot of sense to bring them in and put it together. Let's put up some of the numbers which really are disturbing. So now and this was according to the CFB information, voters registered in the Bronx is 85.5%. In the primary in April 2016, 28.7% of the voters, or eligible voters, came out to vote. But look at that, 8 years later, this is not just a couple of percentage points drop. This is a 4.8% of the votes. That's a almost 24% drop. It's the lowest of all the boroughs. And then in the general election just last November, only 52% voted, which is the lowest of all the five boroughs. We really do have a problem here in the Bronx, and that's what you're trying to address.
Yeah.
Let's just talk a little bit about, and I should mention, by the way, and this also comes out of the CFB numbers, that Bronx Community Boards 1 through 7, which of course is the southern part of the borough, have some of the lowest voting rates in New York City. We'll get back to you why that's the case in just a moment. But so what is the CUNY Institute for State and Local Governance? I'm a CUNY graduate. I mean, I've never heard of it before, but now obviously you really are doing something very important.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gary, and it's great to be here. So CUNY Institute for State and Local Governance, or CUNY ISLG, we are a think and do tank within CUNY. We work with government agencies such as CFB and nonprofits such as many of the community-based groups who are taking part in this initiative in order to support their work. And that includes helping folks with contracting, helping manage budgets, providing capacity build into organizations, and also doing research and evaluation to support programs. So our official location is 34th Street in Midtown, but we work with groups and individuals and government agencies all over the city and state to help support their work. And
you know, a lot of people look at the various education budgets, maybe even for colleges and universities, and the first thing they say is, why are we spending all this money on research? Why are we putting, you know, all the resources into research? This is about as good an example, because this can have real effect. I guess one of the things that's important to you, and of course to the CFB, is building democracy. Talk a little bit about the creation of the fellowship.
Yeah.
Why did this become a fellowship as opposed to just kind of some nice recommendations?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Well, when CFB approached us to partner, we were very excited because we've actually done a few fellowship programs in the past, including work with legislators, the Lindsay Fellowship, and work with legislative chiefs of staff, the Kriegel Fellowship. So we've seen there's a lot of value in working with someone, whether it's a legislative staffer or a CUNY student, for a long period of time and really engaging with them, helping them support the organization they're working at. So when we had the opportunity to work on this project, a few ideas came together, right? One is the fact that, as Demiana mentioned, as you mentioned, there's a need for civic engagement, democratic engagement in the Bronx. Another is that there are so many wonderful organizations right here in this borough doing amazing civic engagement
We're going to
work.
examine those in just a bit. Okay.
And then the third was that, CUNY students are, I don't want to say an untapped resource, but I think in a lot of ways a group of passionate individuals who care a lot about the city, who are part of these institutions of social mobility. And we thought that bringing all these things together, creating an opportunity for CUNY students to work on civic engagement would be critical.
We have a quote from the executive director of the CFB who said, "In building a local democracy where all New Yorkers can build power and have a real say, we're letting CUNY students and community-based organizations who know the Bronx better than anyone, and we're having them lead the way." Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Let's talk a little bit about the fellowship and what it is that the students will be doing.
Absolutely. So there are 14 fellows, and for the first, basically we had a boot camp, as we called it, for them in August, where they worked with us for a week and with CFB, learning a lot about different topics, doing visits to different sites in the Bronx, meeting with organizations and officials here. And then, so that was their first week of paid engagement. And then starting in this fall, they are working part-time at their program site, at their nonprofit, supporting civic engagement activities such as voter registration, spreading the word about elections. They're doing 2 sessions a month with us at CUNY ISLG, where ourselves, some of our partners such as CFB and other experts come in and talk about different topics around civic and community engagement, engaging with the fellows. And then the fellowship supports a year of full-time employment after graduation. These fellows are all seniors, I should have said that earlier at CUNY.
I think we have a picture of them too, we can put that up.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So they will have a full year of employment working on civic engagement at their nonprofit program site after they graduate.
This was why at the beginning I said plural, many upsides, because this is, we'll keep talking about the voter part, but for the students themselves, this is real life. This is getting them out of the classroom and into doing something that can have effect.
Absolutely. We're so excited
must,
about
must
that.
be
Yeah.
incredibly exciting, and they get the real world experience and they'll benefit. Let's just get back to the original conversation here. The voter participation is low. It was identified by the CFB that it is in the southernmost part of the Bronx. What are the reasons that that's the case? Why is that the case? One would think that people, especially people who want more services, better services, would be the first ones online to want to, click the ballot box.
I mean, we know that historically and systematically there is a really large variety of reasons why there are barriers to access to voting in places like the Bronx and places like community districts 1 through 7. Our vision at the CFB is really to make sure that we are meeting communities directly where they're at, and making sure that community members have the information and the resources they need to be able to exercise their right to vote.
It seems, some of the reports that were put out that said people feel like they're underrepresented in government, but then they don't see the path to getting them represented. You know what I'm saying? That they don't feel engaged in this process. What kinds of things in addition to this, do you do other things to engage them, or this really is a way of balancing the scales? you know?
Absolutely. NYC Votes is an initiative of the CFB that really works on the ground and reaches out to communities, partners with really amazing community-based organizations to make sure that voters receive all of the information that they need to access their right to vote. The CFB produces a voter analysis report every year so that community members can know the ins and outs of what is going on in their community's engagement, and what policies impact them. And NYC Votes and the CFB produce the voter guide as well, so that voters can know who's running, when the election is, where they can find their poll site, all of the information that they really need.
And of course, when to register if possible. But low voter turnouts, higher percentages of Latino and Hispanic residents and residents born in other countries seem to not come out to vote as well as people who are born U.S. citizens. Maybe they're unfamiliar with it. I mean, and I guess for you, Mr. Hart, this is part of the whole process, is educating them. What specifically are the fellows going to do when they get to some of the organizations? And in a moment, we'll show the list of those organizations.
So it's going to be, and it already is happening on the ground, which is exciting, but it's going to be a variety of things. One is, being on the ground at community events, such as, for instance, one of our fellows at South Bronx United mentioned recently being at a community health fair. Now, this isn't a civic engagement event per se, but it means they were able to talk to hundreds of community members about the election, about the importance of registering to vote, about the different rules and policies. So one piece of it is just being present at events that may not be officially voting events, but being there with information, with resources, with materials for community residents. So that's a big piece of a lot of what the fellows are doing. Another is helping to build connection and community among young people. These are all fellows. These are CUNY seniors in their final year of school, and I think a lot of the organizations that they're working with mentioned the importance of building youth connections. So that's something that a lot of the fellows will be doing as well.
And that's really valuable, and it's very interesting what you say about them being seniors, because with this experience behind them, that's what I was talking about, upsides, then ultimately you would think they would kind of be engaged in some form in the voting and democratic process.
Exactly, and we think that will be what we hope and what we see happening already. One thing that's really exciting is that, they haven't been at their placements that long. They started just in the past month.
We said September.
And literally during the first month, we've had fellows reaching out to us and CFB saying, hey, can we get materials? I want to share these materials at this event my organization is having. I want to make sure we have info about the election. We have voter registration materials. So this is an eager, excited group of CUNY students and organizations, many of whom are already, reaching out to ask us for things, which I think is wonderful.
Is wonderful. Yeah. Let's put up the list. We've got the list of organizations, and I'm just going to read it real quick because there are, I guess, 14 of them: Bronx Defenders, Center for Justice Innovation, Bronx Community Justice, Children's Aid, Graham Windham, Madison Square Boys and Girls Club, Muslim Community Network, New Settlement, SAPNA NYC, South Bronx United, and South Bronx Unite, two different organizations, the Point Community Development Corp, Urban Youth Alliance International, Volunteers in America, Greater New York, and We Stay Nos Quedamos. These are many of the organizations that the people in the Bronx, are part of. How were they selected? Did they come to you and say, hey, we want to be part of this? Or did you go to them and say, hey, you know what?
It was a little bit both, a little bit of a mix. We put out a request for proposals, so folks could submit a proposal saying, hey, we want to be a host organization for this initiative. And the Bronx has so many wonderful organizations. We got a lot of wonderful
I got a list that could double or triple that of organizations.
Absolutely. So we looked at each proposal for hosting a fellow and doing civic engagement activities, and a committee including ISLG and CFB, as well as some additional partners and experts. It was a difficult decision, but I'm really excited about the 14 organizations where we landed. I think it's, to me, one thing that's quite exciting about this is when that list you just read, it's a wildly different types of organizations. We have very specific neighborhood-based organizations, health-focused groups, a public defender group, sort of everything in between. And I think that really shows that civic engagement and the need to engage about participation can happen at so many levels.
And also the number of citizens who are participating
Absolutely,
in those
absolutely.
organizations.
Yeah.
This, for a policy analysis, this must be a gratifying project because you do all the work and now you get a chance to see, well, wait a minute, we figured out this is the problem and this is a solution. You must be real happy about it.
I mean, yeah, this is a really, really wonderful project, and we are so excited to be in this partnership. The fellowship, as you've kind of mentioned before, it allows us to invest in this next generation of civic leaders. The students that are part of the fellowship are already passionate, they're already invested in their communities, and the work of the fellowship is to really put them in the right place at the right time so that we can give them the opportunity to work in the community in the way that they want to while expanding the capacity of these amazing community-based organizations to do the work that they always have been.
You know, it was this I didn't know until we've had this conversation that it was kind of like after the various data came out, what should we do about it? Was this based on a model? I mean, do we know if this, maybe you would know better, is this based on a model or is this really, like everything else, was invented here in the Bronx?
I mean, we looked at any number of models all around the country.
Oh, you did?
We looked at different granting models as well as fellowship models, and we kind of worked together to come up with this program design that really fit the best for New York City and the best for the Bronx, and we're really excited to be piloting this program here.
I'm going to use Bronx language. I freaking love it. I think it's great. I think it's great for the students. I think, just as we identified earlier, picking CUNY students because they are real-world people by nature. Mr. Hart, let's just talk about that whole notion of the students. Did you do a reach out? Did they apply to you? Were they part of governmental programs? How did we identify those? Now, how many are there?
The 14.
14, right. One
Yep.
to go with each one
Yeah.
of the organizations. Okay.
Yeah, we did. So we put out a call, an application, essentially, and we heard from, and some of the students who applied were folks who were already plugged into civic work and were coming from experience volunteering, things like that. Some weren't, but some were folks who were just really interested in learning more and seeing this as an important opportunity. So we have, I believe, CUNY students from 5 different campuses, I think, in this program now.
I was going to ask what colleges.
Baruch, Lehman, right here. Lehman, Baruch, Hunter, John Jay, and City College at this point. We are, if there are future iterations, we hope to, continue outreach to the broader range of CUNY campuses out there because we think it is a great opportunity for for CUNY students. But yeah, for this process, we put out an application. We interviewed folks just to make sure they understood the program and knew what they were getting. It is, I think it's a great opportunity, but it is a big commitment. It's a 2-year commitment, so we wanted to make sure.
Oh, it's a 2-year commitment. Wow.
Yeah, because it includes that year of
that.
employment afterwards. So we wanted to
Oh,
make
I didn't
sure.
know that.
Yeah, just one of the things that I think is super excited about this. And
Boy, am I glad I wasn't aware of
Sorry.
that. Yeah, no, we want to know about it.
and it's a tribute.
Another upside. Put it on your list.
And it's a tribute to CFB really investing in this work is that it supports after they graduate, it supports a year of employment at the nonprofit sites for the individual participants. So I think, that is, I'm so excited about that aspect of it, but it is something, in these interviews and conversations, we wanted to make sure students know what they're getting into. This is a big commitment. It's part-time work. It's engaging with the courses, and then it is the year of employment afterwards. But I think,
Ms. Rizkalla, that suggests a whole other thing, is that once this is done, how will you measure whether it's successful? Will you look at simply voter turnout? I mean, what measuring tools will you use to say, well, this was a good investment and this is what we should be doing?
Oh wow, there are so many measurement tools.
Well, that's what you do. That's why you do it.
Yes, voter turnout is
would
one
be the
of those
first.
tools.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the more long-term measurement tools. But measuring directly with the communities that that these fellows are working with, getting feedback from community members. We are really
feedback from the organizations too, if I can.
Yes, yes. We really want to know through this fellowship, are people learning something? You know, do they feel like they are more familiar with the electoral process and all of the things involved in New York City elections, like ranked choice voting, like special elections, the different primaries that we have, as well as the general election, all of the different levels of government, the ballot proposals. The list goes on.
Goes on and on. You know, you mentioned ranked choice voting, and it opens up a whole kind of thing to research, because I think one of the things which I hear all the time from Bronx people, they don't do anything for us. Oh, why bother voting? Because look what it's turned out, or look what it's turning out. It doesn't get us anywhere. This is an opportunity to kind of re-engage that dialogue, I'm guessing, right? It makes sense to show them the value. If you do come out, we'd like to see maybe there are some results to it, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
That certainly is the long-term point of view. Well, for you, Mr. Hart, the same kind of question. How are you going to measure whether there's, aside from she'll do the data, that's covered. But what are you looking for from either the students or the organizations or the general populace?
Well, there's a few levels of it, right? As you said, one is from the students and the organizations. We're connecting with them all regularly and will be over the 2 years of the program, including both, we're checking in, we're hearing how it goes, but then we also have a more formal reporting process where people can tell us both qualitatively and quantitatively how's it going, what activities have happened, how many voters have they talked to, what's going well, what maybe is not going well and needs some correction, things like that. So we really want to make sure, and this is part of our approach at ISLG, that we are connected to the community-based organizations and the participants and able to get feedback from them, real time, both through a standard reporting process, but also any time as needed. And then the other piece, as you mentioned, Demiana, is like there will be this larger evaluation of civic engagement impact that I know we'll be collaborating on and thinking about things like voting rates and engagement and how that's changed in community districts 1 through 7 over the next few years.
We work with here on BronxNet television in general and here on this program with many community organizations in the Bronx who are not necessarily on that list. And I just know the people involved, and when they hear this kind of thing could be available, it's too late now to get in on this one, but in your mind, do you look at maybe expanding it or doing something further with it?
I mean, I would love to. I think it's still early days,
it's too early to vote on that.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, I would love to continue this work. I think we'll have to see how this pilot goes and what funding available in the future and all those questions. But I absolutely think it is a model that even in the brief time we've been working on it, I think it's shown so much promise. These are 14 really wonderful CUNY students, 14 wonderful organizations. And as you said, I know there are so many more community-based organizations in the Bronx and all over the city who could play an amazing role in an initiative like this. So hopefully.
Listen, I say this jokingly, but it happens very often that in the Bronx, we start everything, and stuff comes here, and then do you see we'll start with you, and then we'll ask you the same question. Do you see this being able to spread and say, well, let's look at Brooklyn, whether the voting numbers are as low as the turnout numbers in the Bronx? Do you see that kind of expansion? And certainly CUNY is 5 boroughs wide.
I mean, I think there's certainly a need for a program like this in a lot of communities, right? The Bronx, as we mentioned, why we talked about districts 1 through 7, but there are a lot of different community districts throughout the city where there are lower voting rates or engagement rates, and whether that's in parts of Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, Manhattan, what have you. So I think this is a model that absolutely could work in other places, although we're thrilled that it's started right here in the Bronx. I think in terms of next steps for future years, we'll see what happens with this pilot and with the funding and things like that. But I absolutely think it would be a fit in other areas as well.
Listen, as I said, we think everything starts here in the borough of the Bronx. But this is great. In other words, I'm thinking at first about the organizations who would participate. And I know there are many who would say, wow, we could do something like this. But I also think the colleges themselves,
Yes,
I mean, I don't
absolutely.
want to go to the ones that you didn't name there. There's no question when the people who are, the provosts and the presidents of those colleges will say, wait a minute, we'd love that fellowship here. What
Absolutely.
about other boroughs? Do you see this as a win-win for them as well?
Of course. I mean, the community districts that we've chosen from the Bronx comes from the CFB's determined priority community districts, and you can check out the CFB website to see our full list of priority community districts. But it's all over the city. The problems and barriers to access that people in the Bronx are facing to vote they're widespread. They're all over the city in different ways. And so absolutely this, we've worked really hard on this model, and I think it could apply.
On that same note, you were talking about, studying other models and other things. Are they successful? I mean, is this kind of model, has it been successful in other places, or are they still working it out and we'll make it successful and then they'll figure it out?
I mean, like I said, we really worked together to develop this particular model, which is a bit unique because it combines that direct investment in community-based organizations as well as a fellowship model. I think, in short, voting is tricky. It's a tricky issue, and
Especially nowadays.
right, and
Absolutely.
every program across the country is dealing with its own unique set of circumstances, and they have their own measures of success. What we do know is that it is imperative that we invest directly in communities because they are the authority on what their community needs.
I'm going to propose a little test to see if it's successful, Patrick, and this will be the last question, or the last point. If you can ask people if they can explain ranked choice voting after going through this program, then I think it'll then I think it'll be successful.
I love that. I'd love to, come back and talk.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do they get in touch with you? We can put up contact info, and because people are interested.
Great. Oh, absolutely. So we are
through the website.
CUNY Institute for State and Local Governance, which is islg.cuny.edu, and we are on Blue Sky, LinkedIn, and I think still on X as well.
Everywhere
so.
you can be.
And we are, you can find us on that website. We're located on 34th Street, right across from the Grad Center, if anyone wants to come say hi.
Thank you so much. We got to run. Demiana Rizkalla from the Campaign Finance Board. Thanks. Patrick Hart, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that's it. Concludes our program. We want to thank our producer, of course, Rebecca Hemmick, our BronxNet production and editing crew, and of course, it's you too, the people of the Bronx. We'll get you out to vote, and we'll make the changes that the people of the Bronx want. See you next time. Good night.